This encounter happened when I was about 10 years old. My older sister Rachel and I were home alone for the day. It was summer break, and both our mom and grandmother were busy with work. We were used to being alone during the summers, so it didn't seem like a big deal. The only rule was simple: don't go outside and never open the door for anyone. That afternoon, I was in the kitchen playing The Sims 2 on our computer. Rachel was in the den, sprawled on the couch watching TV. The house was quiet except for the sound of the game clicking away and her show murmuring in the background. A couple of hours went by like this. Then I thought I heard the doorbell. At first, I assumed it was from my game, but I had turned the sound off. I called out to Rachel, asking if she'd heard it. She shook her head and said it was probably just something on TV. I brushed it off and went back to my game. 10 minutes later, something happened that froze me in place. The computer screen reflected the glass doors behind me, and in that reflection, I saw a man, a stranger, standing just outside, his hands cupped around his face as he peered inside. He was staring right at me. I spun around, my heart hammering. There he was, a tall man I had never seen before, dressed in a black suit that didn't fit him properly. His clothes hung awkwardly on his thin frame. And in the middle of a sweltering 99-degree summer day, he was wearing a full suit. A briefcase dangled from one hand. Not a clipboard, not flyers like salespeople usually carried, but an actual briefcase. It made him look completely out of place. The man smiled at me and waved. Not a friendly wave, more like someone who thought I should recognize him. My stomach dropped. I shouted for Rachel, and she came rushing over, still unaware of what was happening. Her eyes widened the moment she saw him. He didn't knock. He didn't ring the bell again. Instead, he walked around the side of the house, vanishing from view for a moment before reappearing at the back door. The very door, just a few feet from where I was sitting. That meant he had already seen our empty driveway. He knew no adults were home. Then he reached for the doorknob. He twisted it, jiggling it hard, testing the lock. My stomach twisted as the handle rattled violently. Thank God the door was locked. He looked through the glass, grinning at me. Then, with a slow, deliberate gesture, he motioned for me to come and unlock the door. That sound, the clattering of the doorknob, the thumping against the frame, set off her dog. Bella, our 75-pound lab mix, exploded into furious barking, hurling herself against the door as if she would break through it. Her snarls shook the glass, and for a moment, I thought she might actually tear it off the hinges. I had never been so grateful for her. Rachel grabbed the house phone and called our grandmother, her hands trembling. Grandma said she was on her way immediately and told us to hide in the back bedroom until she arrived. Rachel shoved the phone in my hands, then ran to the kitchen and yanked open a drawer. She came back with the biggest knife we owned, gripping it tightly in both hands. My sister stood her ground in front of the door and yelled through the glass. We called the cops. They're on their way. The man's response was worse than anything I could have imagined. He laughed. Not a nervous laugh, not the laugh of someone caught making a mistake, but a deep, chilling laugh like she had just told the funniest joke in the world. That sound echoed in my head for years. A little while later, we heard the front door unlocking and our grandmother's voice calling our names. We rushed out, relief washing over us. She told us she hadn't seen anyone outside. She had walked around the entire house before coming in. The man had vanished without a trace. Grandma found the whole thing strange. If he had been a real salesperson, he would have at least left a business card or a note saying, "Sorry I missed you." But there was nothing, just the lingering chill of his presence. She took the rest of the day off work to stay with us, sitting by the windows, keeping watch in case he returned. It's been more than a decade since that day. But even now, I can still see his pale grin pressed against the glass, and I still wonder what was inside that briefcase he carried. I'll never know, and honestly, I don't think I want to. I have been living in my apartment for about 3 years. It was a nice place, in an amazing location, even if the building itself was older, built in the late 90s. Over the past few years, the city I lived in had exploded with new people moving in. Great weather, strong economy, and endless things to do meant the population kept growing every year. Because of that, the landlords had started doing heavy renovations to update the units, trying to make them more appealing to the constant stream of newcomers. My neighbor had lived next door for 6 years before moving into a house. As soon as he left, the management began gutting his apartment. New floors, new paint, new kitchen, everything. I often saw maintenance crews going in and out, hauling tools and materials, and working late into the afternoons. The way the buildings were designed, my bedroom wall connected directly to the staircase inside my neighbor's apartment. My bed was pressed up against that wall, meaning that when someone walked up or down those stairs, it felt like they were moving right beside my head. A few days before this incident, I saw workers inside redoing the kitchen. Nothing unusual. That night, though, something happened that I'll never forget. It was around 1 a.m. I was still awake, lying in bed, watching TV. That's when I heard it, the slow, deliberate creak of footsteps coming up the stairs next door. I froze. They didn't climb all the way. Whoever it was stopped right in the middle of the staircase, the exact spot that lined up perfectly with my bed. It was as if they were standing there on the other side of the wall, listening to me breathe. I clicked the TV off, holding my breath. The silence that followed felt unbearable. Minutes dragged by like hours. Finally, I heard the steps continue up to the second floor. My chest tightened with dread. There wasn't supposed to be anyone living there. No one had moved in yet. I got up quietly and went to another room where I had a good view of the outside windows. I waited there, eyes locked on the apartment, watching for any sign of movement. I sat like that for 15 minutes. Nothing. Not a shadow, not a sound. I convinced myself maybe I had imagined it, so I went back to bed. This time, I kept the TV off. I scrolled my phone nervously, listening to every creak and whisper in the silence. That's when I heard it again. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, except this time, they didn't start from the top or the bottom of the stairs. They started in the middle, meaning that the entire time I had been waiting, listening, watching, someone had been standing there in silence, just feet from me, on the other side of the wall. My skin crawled. My stomach dropped. I grabbed my phone and dialed the police. I whispered to the dispatcher what was happening. They promised to send someone immediately. I went back to the other room, staring out the window, heart racing. Within minutes, I saw a police cruiser pull into the lot. An officer stepped out, shining his flashlight across the building. He knocked on the apartment door. To my shock, I heard someone answer. The officer spoke to them briefly, though I couldn't hear what was said. Then the cop came to my door. He was polite, calm, and said, "Don't worry, someone just moved in there." I felt embarrassed. Relieved, but embarrassed. I even laughed it off, saying, "Well, that's a hell of a way to meet your new neighbor." The officer chuckled, wished me good night, and left. I tried to brush it off as paranoia, just my mind playing tricks on me late at night. But the next morning shattered that illusion. As I left for work, I saw maintenance workers hauling an old refrigerator out of the unit. Confused, I looked inside the open door. The kitchen was still torn apart, bare wires hanging from the walls, the counters unfinished, not a single piece of furniture in sight. The place was nowhere near ready for anyone to live in. I asked one of the workers about it. He told me nobody would be moving in for at least 3 more weeks. My stomach turned to ice. I ran back upstairs, locked my door, and immediately called my landlord. She was horrified. She swore no one was supposed to be in there. She promised to have the locks changed that day and told me to call the non-emergency police line to report everything. I went to the station and told them exactly what happened. They quickly tracked down which officer had responded the night before. He described the man who had answered the door, and I confirmed I had never seen anyone matching that description around the complex. The police searched the area for weeks. Patrol cars circled the lot at random hours. Then, slowly they stopped, and the case seemed to fade away. A month later, a sweet elderly couple finally moved in next door. They were warm and kind, nothing like the stranger the officer had spoken to that night. I was glad to see them, but part of me only went out to greet them so I could make sure neither matched the description of the man. They didn't. I don't know who that man was or what he was doing inside that unfinished apartment. All I know is that he was there listening, and I have no doubt he got away with it. For weeks afterward, I couldn't sleep in my bedroom. I moved my bed into the smaller second room because I couldn't stand lying with my head against that wall anymore. To this day, it's one of the most chilling experiences of my life. And the scariest part is knowing I'll never know what he wanted. I wasn't thrilled when my brother first put this story online. Honestly, it made me uncomfortable. But after reading through the comments people left, and after some serious arm twisting from a certain someone, I decided to share my own version. Because for me, this was one of the scariest periods of my life. It started about 8 months ago. I had just moved out of my mom's place into my very first house. At first, it was great. Freedom, independence, my own space. But after about 3 months, strange things began to happen. It started small. I began receiving flowers and anonymous phone calls from someone I didn't know. At first, I brushed it off as harmless. But then I noticed items going missing from my kitchen and my living room. Things would be unplugged when I left them plugged in. The TV would be on in the mornings, even though I always turn it off before bed. Pretty soon, I stopped going downstairs at night altogether. My bedroom became my prison. I would rush upstairs in the evening, shut the door, and not come out until daylight. But the breaking point came one night when I turned on the AV transmitter in my room, the one I used to watch cable upstairs. The screen lit up, and I saw someone flipping through the channels in my living room. That was when I knew I wasn't alone in this house. I went to my brother, Jacob, at a party a few days later. I told him everything. At first, he looked at me like I was crazy. He said I was just paranoid. But eventually, he saw how shaken I was and agreed to stay at my place for a few nights. Our younger brother, Alex, insisted on coming too. He was only 17, and I didn't want him involved, but I reluctantly agreed. And of course, while they stayed with me, nothing happened. No calls, no flowers, no one inside the house. That made it even worse in a way, because it meant whoever this was they were watching, they knew when I was alone. A few nights later, when my brothers weren't there, it happened again. I could hear someone moving around downstairs. Walking. The TV turned on. Every creak of the floorboards made my heart pound harder. I called Jacob, frantic, whispering into the phone that he needed to get here right away. Alex arrived first, parking outside, but staying in his car. He didn't want to go in without Jacob. When Jacob got there, they jumped the fence into the alley beside my house, whispering into the phone the whole way. They crept to the kitchen window. Then Jacob's voice dropped. "He's in your living room. Don't move. Stay in your room." Hearing that nearly broke me. Some part of me had wanted to believe I was imagining it. But Jacob was looking right at him. There really was someone in my house. Jacob told me he had to hang up so he could call the police. I begged him not to, terrified the intruder would hear the phone disconnect. But he hung up anyway, promising to call back. When he did, my phone wasn't on silent. The ringtone echoed through the house. I panicked, hung up instantly, and pressed my ear against the bedroom door. That's when I heard it. The patio door downstairs opening with its familiar sticky groan. For a second, I thought it was over. I thought the intruder had left. I opened my bedroom door slightly and froze. There was a man in a long black trench coat, baseball cap pulled low, walking up the stairs, walking toward me. I slammed the door shut and shoved my wardrobe against it as quietly as I could. My arm shook with fear. Every muscle burned as I leaned into it, bracing myself. From the other side, I could hear the footsteps and then chaos. My brothers charging up the stairs. A struggle, yelling, and then the man's voice, desperate and broken. "I'm sorry. Please, I'm sorry." When it was over, I moved the wardrobe and opened the door. Alex stood there on the staircase, pale and shaking, holding a knife he had just picked up from the floor. The intruder was gone, but I'd seen his face, and I knew him. It was our ex-stepfather. The man had struggled with severe mental illness his whole life. His daughters hadn't spoken to him in over a decade. I don't believe he's evil, not truly. But he was sick, and in his sickness, he had been breaking into my house, watching me, living inside my walls and routines without me knowing. When I learned it was him, I felt crushed, guilty even, because if I had known, maybe I would have gone downstairs and spoken to him. Maybe I wouldn't have been so afraid. But in that moment, in that house, all I felt was terror. And that's something I'll never forget.